The following may contain language that is not suitable for all audiences.
Oh, wow.
Easy peasy.
Man, don't I feel dumb.
I don't think you do.
I might.
Yeah, but you'll get over it, I suppose.
Yep.
So here's something that that I've been wondering about for a very long time.
Shit, I don't think I'll have the answer.
I don't know that there is an answer, but I do often wonder why people think that the bigger something is, the better it must be. For example, people have this inherent bias thinking that, and I'll use attorneys as an example, like if an attorney that works at a gigantic law firm must be better than an attorney that, works or has an office in like a strip mall.
Yep. Bigger is better, according to people.
But I don't know why or how that happened.
I think it's the mentality that if something can get really big, then it must be good. Then it must be something that, like, if a company is giant and successful, then there's got to be something really good about it.
I suppose, but in my experience, and I don't know if this is a systemic thing or just a consequence of it. But to me, the really big organizations only really seem to reward mediocrity.
So mediocrity is less than average, right?
Mediocre is average, in my opinion. Because something is so big that it's easier for it to succeed.
But how did it become successful in the first place? And how did it get big?
Well, I guess that depends on who you ask. I remember out of college, I worked for a very large company, like a super large company.
Uh-huh.
And the subsidiary of that company that I worked for was having some kind of anniversary book being published, Not published, but they had this big glossy book talking about how great the company is and everything like that. And it was kind of funny how all the founders were still there and how it was just growing by leaps and bounds and how great it is and blah, blah this and blah, blah that. And I don't know if this makes any difference, but I do remember that while I was working there, it got sold off to another company. But still.
The subsidiary?
Yeah. But, just this whole idea that if something's really big, gargantuan, it's really good. And I never really thought that. Now, it could very well be because I was never able to have any kind of big success in the big organization.
But which you would have if you could have.
Sure.
Yeah.
Who wouldn't?
Yeah.
I mean, who's going to sit there and like, here's a choice for you, kid. You can slog day in and day out for every crumb you get. Or you can come over here and get all this junk for seemingly nothing.
Right.
I mean, it's a different kind of slogging. I do remember recently I read something about Anthony Fauci, and basically the article was really just saying he wasn't really good at being a scientist.
Mm-hmm.
He was just really good at being a politician.
Well, that's pretty important.
Well, sure, in a large organization, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if it's the skill set that you need to get by is really different if you're in a company with like 100,000 employees, as opposed to, in a place with 2.
Yeah.
Right. You would think that in a company with 100,000, there would be enough people that knew what they were doing and are okay what they do to be able to bring in money for the company. And so, if you weren't particularly good at what you do, then you could parlay other strengths.
Right. Ambition.
Well, no. I mean, that's just because you're in a company with two people don't mean you're not ambitious. I don't think Mr. Harley or Mr. Davidson were not ambitious.
Two guys.
Or Mr. Hewlett or Mr. Packard. Right? But there's stuff that's...
But those examples became big companies.
Well, sure. Or even the unions. It just seems to me that the bigger something gets...
So you don't think big is better?
I know that big is not better.
See, I feel like coming from the country that I come from New Zealand, I feel like that when we look at a large company, there's like this, I don't know if it's intimidation, but like definitely coming from New Zealand, when we look at a large company or a large country, like we tend to be we look at that and we're a little impressed by the size.
Sure, but
right?
I mean,
like, oh my God.
Look, I'm not saying that big doesn't have advantages.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, if you're one person fighting against 30 people, then yeah, chances are those 30 people are going to kick your butt.
Right.
And even in warfare, the side with the most people generally wins.
Yeah. I would say that's the same in business, isn't it? I mean, if you've got the market, I mean, if you've got the opportunity to, if you can price out your...
Well, it's not even just that. I mean, it's just, there is a numbers game to it. If you're a company with 2 salesmen going against a company with 15 salesmen, then those 15 guys are definitely going to be able to
upsell you or whatever.
Well, they should, right? I mean, that's why it was always funny when we had an acquaintance that was always talking about how he could code better than 3 or 4 people.
Right.
And I'm just sitting there going, well, no.
There's not enough hours in the day.
Well, there's not enough hours a day for you to be able to code. Like in an 8-hour day, pitting you against 10 people or 3 people.
Yeah.
For every hour you code, they're going to code 3.
Right.
And the only way really that it's going to make any difference is if those 3 coders don't know how to code. Yeah.
I mean, even if you were like the super coder, right? But if they could code, like, okay.
Yeah. Exactly. Look, I love using analogies, so I'll use this one, right? If you're weaving baskets.
Basket weaving.
And you happen to be the best basket weaver on earth, you're still not going to be able to weave more baskets than 3 other people who may not be able to weave baskets as well as you, but they can weave.
Right.
And that example has been kind of proven out in history, like in World War II. I think the conventional wisdom is that the Germans and the Japanese had better weapons. They just didn't have enough of them. Mm-hmm. Or even the Civil War, right? At the beginning of the Civil War, I think the Confederate States had something like 9 million people, and 5 million of them were slaves.
Right.
Whereas the states in the North had something like 3 or 4 times that, and none of them were slaves. Mm-hmm. I mean, they were pretty close, right? I mean, they were immigrants and stuff, so you could use a bigger pool.
Yeah.
And it still came like, if they could bring 5 people for every person you could bring to a fight.
So the Union armies were much bigger.
The Union forces had more people. Mm-hmm. Way more people.
Yeah. And probably like more arms and...
Look, here's... in those Civil War battles, I think the Union side would lose more people as casualties than the Confederate side even had on their side.
Oh, man.
And even then, soaking up those kind of losses.
So it's kind of miraculous that the South won battles then.
Well, they had... The odd thing was because it was at the beginning of the Civil War, the British really loved the Confederacy because it was kind of like a mirror of their system. You had the aristocrats and the plebs. The plebs were slaves, unfortunately for them, but there were these people that had these aristocratic lifestyles, and even to this day, the people that are the big and bad, the establishment, they really go on breeding. They think that they're just better people.
Mm. It's kind of funny. Like, peculiar.
It is.
Like, why would you think that?
I think the officers in the Confederate States were, for lack of a better word, better than the officers in the northern states. I mean, there were more people that lived out in the outdoors. They were the wealthy, just like the wealthy in the north, but they were just, they were better suited to warfare almost. I mean, that's why the aristocrats all throughout history used to love blood sports.
Well, yeah, the British. Well,
Still,
yeah,
it was all about the breeding, and a few hundred years after, they were always thinking. I mean, that's why World War I was such a horrific shit show.
Because there was a bunch of aristocrats fighting each other.
Well, no, the officers all came from the aristocratic class, and the lower classes made up the bunch. The aristocrats, the people that are always in power, kind of fancy themselves as leaders, and I think that idea is a bit incorrect. I mean, I still don't know what leadership is. I don't know what you would call a leader. All I know is that I wouldn't call anyone right now a leader. I mean, you're in power, or you're in the establishment, or whatnot, or there are people that rally around, use you as the symbol. And, when times are good and easy, it's great to be that symbol. But when the people are pissed off, then you're the thing that needs to get gotten rid of.
So where are the leaders, I wonder? Why don't... Maybe that there's no place for them in this kind of system?
Sometimes I wonder if leaders just happen to come out when the history books are written.
That's possible. So there's never been any leaders? Come on.
Well, look, it's just a
that Biggs belief. Is it Biggs? Bigger's belief.
I don't know what colloquialism you're trying to use.
It's hard to believe.
And yeah, it is, but I wonder that. Just like I wonder what makes a good president.
These days, I have no idea.
Like I said, does it happen after? After the dust has settled and all things are kind of said and done, all of a sudden people are just deciding, oh, this person was a great president.
They interviewed some guy on NPR. I think it was NPR. It was one of the they had an interview with some sociologist who was clearly like left-leaning. And he was talking about how, Donald Trump did a lot of good things, but, now after D.C. and what happened in the Capitol, all that's out the window now. His Donald Trump's legacy is going to be about what happened in Washington. I'm like, please.
Possible. I just don't think that Donald Trump's legacy is going to be written today.
No.
Just like Barack Obama's legacy.
But I'm just like, this guy was talking like he knew. I'm just like, you don't know. You don't know what's going to happen.
Well, truly, that's correct, but we all act like we do, I suppose.
Yeah.
This will upset a lot of people, but because I'm not an ardent supporter of anybody, even though a lot of people we know think I'm an ardent supporter of Donald Trump. I don't support him.
That's funny that people do.
Well, that's because I don't badmouth him.
Right.
But I did like the thing that I liked about Donald Trump was the fact that the establishment folks really, really hated him for something that didn't seem like it was a real reason. I don't look at presidents like messiahs or senators or any of those people.
A lot of people do.
That's fine. That's their choice. But all the stuff that people that did not support him or was outright opposed to him, the stuff that was used to justify the dislike or the opposition had nothing to do with policy.
It was very personal.
And on the same token, the people that love Barack Obama, I have yet to have heard policy.
I think a lot of people don't like Trump just because they found him to be embarrassing.
Well, he is.
That was it.
I mean,
just, period. Embarrassing.
Well, yeah. I mean, when he was
What an embarrassment.
when he was doing his junk in the 80s and the 90s, and he's always putting his name on everything, I was like, God, that guy acts like he's nouveau riche. I thought he made all his money until I found out, no, it was his grandmother.
Well, and he got bailed out by the banks, too, at a certain point.
So what?
Didn't he?
The banks got bailed out. Chrysler got bailed out.
Which comes back to the whole too big to fail thing, which people are always like, oh, well, we can't let these companies fail. They're too big. Why not?
Because them failing could be a really bad thing on you.
Could be. But if they've put themselves in a position where they could fail, like free market, right? Isn't that like the whole free market thing? Let the market dictate.
Well, yeah.
Or maybe that we really don't have a free market.
I don't think you do. I don't think we do. But I go back to my scared of death analogy. Free market, free market, free market. Yeah, that's all well and good until you're a gigantic corporation and all your money might go up in smoke. And all of a sudden, no. We need some help.
All right.
That reminds me of a story I heard years ago, back in the 80s. I guess some Muslim guy won the British lottery. Yeah, this is like in the 80s.
Okay.
Right? He won the British lottery, and there was all this hubbub about gambling in Islam. Like, oh, you can't do it. And, buying a lottery ticket is bad, right? But the imams were like, well, if you share some with the church, it's just like that. What's that Irish joke?
It's a great joke, but it's...
Oh, the one with the dog, right? The guy was sitting there talking.
Yeah.
The guy went and talked to his priest, was like, my dog died, and I was hoping that you'd be able to say a mass. And the priest was like, what, are you kidding me? I can't say a mass for a damn dog.
Mm-hmm.
And then he was like, yeah, but the Anglican guy down the street said he'd do it for like 10 pounds. And then the priest says, oh, why didn't you tell me your dog was Irish? Or why didn't you tell me your dog was Catholic?
I thought the dog was buried with money. I think I might have heard a variation where there was like a whole lot of money that he was going to bury with the dog.
No, that I know what you're joking.
A different joke.
That's a different joke, and I think we should end today's discussion with that joke.
Okay.
So, a very rich man, before he dies, told his priest, his doctor, and his lawyer, gave them all like a chunk of the money to be responsible for. And he told each of them, when I die, I want to be buried in my casket with all my money. So I want you to bury me with the chunk of money that you're responsible for.
Right.
And well, he happens to die, and the priest, the doctor, and the lawyer are all there, and he's being buried with all the money going around, and the three guys are sitting there, and the doctor and the lawyer and the priest, the priest and the doctor are talking. And they're like, did you bury him with all that money? And the doctor says, oh, Father, I feel so bad I couldn't bring myself to do it. I took a little bit. And he was like, what about you, Father? And the priest was like, I feel bad as well. I took a little bit too. And then the lawyer overhears this conversation. He gets indignant. He's like, I can't believe this. I can't believe you guys didn't bury him with all that money. That was his dying wish. That was the one thing that he asked you guys to do for him, and you didn't do it. And so the priest and the lawyer get a little bit defensive, like, well, did you bury him with all that money that he gave to you to do? And he was like, you're damn right I did. I wrote him a personal check.
Frickin' lawyers.
Yeah.